this video we are going to look at 1 point perspective drawing, and we are going to need colouring materials. I've chosen colour pencils. You might want to have a black outliner, although that is not essential. You will definitely need to have a pencil, an eraser, a ruler, something round and a piece of paper to draw on. First of all, choose your something round. I chose a plate. You pop it onto your piece of paper, and then the first thing I need you to do is to draw a nice circle around. Now, I'm going to press quite hard with my pencil on this video, but I really encourage that you press as lightly as possible. The only reason that I have to press quite hard is because you won't see the lines, unfortunately, on the video if I don't do that. But this task will work so much better for you if you press really, really lightly. Just think about that pressure being as light as if a tiny little fairy was holding the pencil. So you want it to be that light pressure. Now, if you've got a compass at home, you could do this task, and the mark from the compass will tell you where the middle or the centre of the circle is. I know many of you don't have a compass, which is why I've chosen to use a round plate for this. What it does mean though is that you now have to roughly guess whereabouts the centre of your circle is. You can hold your paper up if you want to and sort of do it by eye. I actually think that I've got it a bit off centre there. You want to try and figure out just where the centre of your page is, and then if you just put an X to mark the spot where it is that your centre of your page is. Let's have a double check. That looks just by eye. I've done it here. Like I said before, I'm going to press quite hard, but I just don't you press as hard as I am doing. I'm doing it so you can see the lines. So if you've seen the slide underneath this video or above this video, you will see that this is going to be a design where all the buildings are stretching up into the night sky. So this X that marks the spot is where we are going to draw the lines, the guidelines of the building from the edge of our circle into the centre to create that illusion of perspective. This is what we would call a worm's eye view. So it's 1 point perspective drawing, but it's also a worm's eye view because we are looking from the ground up to the sky. If it was the reverse and we were looking down onto the buildings, it would be known as a bird's eye view. You've probably heard both of these phrases before, but maybe not realised what they refer to. So let's get ahead with creating our buildings. Now the key is that you create a variety of different widths of buildings and a variety of different heights of buildings. So for this, I'm not going to do any measuring whatsoever. I'm just going to try to make sure that I have some slimmer buildings and some wider buildings. Like I said before, I am going to press quite firmly for the purpose of the video so you can see the sections in pencil, but I really strongly recommend that you press very, very faintly if you can, because these guidelines will be removed afterwards. And obviously the lighter that you press, the easier it is to erase your guidelines afterwards. Okay, so at the moment, it looks as if I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different buildings. You can do fewer, you can do more. It is entirely up to you. The next thing that we need to do then is to decide the different heights of the building. And this, we will need the ruler, and we are going to try to draw a straight line across each segment at different heights. So using my ruler, if you had a really steady hand, you might be able to do this with just freehand, but I'm going to use a ruler for this task. I'm going to pop in different lines that cross over the sections. You can even use the outside edge of the circle as a bit of a guide for you and match up the lower part of your sections here if you want to. That can help if you're worried about trying to keep that line as straight as possible and not too crooked. You can always make freehand adjustments, don't forget, as well, at a later stage. So this is us putting in the lines of the top of the buildings. Have a nice tall narrow building here. And now this one here, I'm going to do something a bit fancy. So I'm going to show you how you can create a stacked building so it looks as if it's got a bit of a tower. This is going to be one building, but I am going to section off 2 extra lines within the building. I'm going to show you why that is now. So very lightly, I am going to draw this one in quite lightly. Okay, I'm going to put a straight line across this section here, so the outside section. I'll show you how that looks now. The first and the second. I've skipped this middle one because here I'm going to draw a top section of that building, and that is going to create my building that looks a little bit like a tower. I'm going to show you how this looks on one that I made earlier. Now at the moment you might be thinking that does not look anything like buildings reaching into the sky, and you'd be absolutely correct. These are our guidelines. I am going to show you with a marker what these are going to transform into, but I would not recommend that you use a marker at this stage. You will be working in now with your pencil. You can take your rubber if you want to and start to rub out some of the guidelines that you know that you're not going to need. Or what I recommend is you start to put in your windows. Now, in order to get the right perspective of your windows, you're still going to have to use your ruler. Except for this time, you always make sure that you're going to the vanishing point up here, but you don't need to draw the entire line up to the vanishing point, because we know that this section is going to be the building, so therefore the windows are going to be inside the building. I'll show you what that looks like if I just pop this one here. So we are going to draw in some of the windows. We need to stretch up to the vanishing point. Move that out of the way. But we don't need to actually draw in the entire line from the vanishing point. So I'm going to pop that side in there. So I've got an edge and an edge. I'm going to split that up. I'm going to make this building have 2 sets of windows. Pop that in there, line it up with the vanishing point, pop that bit in there. And now I can pop the top edge of my windows in. And you can start to see that I'm actually starting to build up these windows here. Now they're very simple windows. Let's show you something a little bit more complex. Let's do a row of windows in this building here. So lining it up to the vanishing point, drawing in my edge of my windows. Remember, I'm pressing really hard. You do not have to press really hard. In fact, I would encourage that you don't, because you remove these lines afterwards. Okay, so now I can start to split these windows up. And I'm making them get a little bit wider as they get to the bottom to create the illusion of that building going up to the sky. Now what I could even do here is I could remember, I would be pressing very lightly with my pencil, unlike what I'm doing right now. I could actually create gaps in between there. So when I work back in with my eraser, the window is going to appear without those lines connecting each one. And you can work your way in. You must do this the way that works the best for you. I like to erase the lines as I go for some of these, especially for the windows. You can leave all the guidelines in. If it doesn't confuse you, you can leave all the guidelines in to the end and then start to remove them. So you might be thinking, I'm still not too sure. So let me just outline this. I'm going to do this freehand, but again, you could use a ruler if you want to. I would not recommend doing the outline before the colouring. But again, for the purpose of this video, I want to show you how this is going to look as we build it up. So it is going to take you a little bit of time. Experiment with your buildings, try out different design ideas. As you do your first couple of buildings, you'll start to get more confident. So that's a very basic building as it is at the moment, and then I could get rid of my guidelines here if I'm ready to do so. You can start to see it's taking shape. Then afterwards I could even work in and create a little bit more detail on my building and have some window frames, and I could work that all the way down. I could even create some texture on the buildings. So if I wanted to create the illusion of a bit of brickwork, I could use mark making techniques. This is called hatching, although it's very spaced out hatching, just to suggest some bricks there. Remember, I've not put any colour on this at the moment. Let me show you one that I started earlier. And this one is halfway complete. So I talked to you about a building that was a little bit more fancy. So it had 2 lines within it. And on this one, it was here, if you remember. This building here. So that would look like, if we were to draw the outside edge line so that you can see. And that would be the building, so it's got 2 tiers to it. This is what this looks like when it's just been added into, so it's had more detail added into it. If I was to carry on around this, I would obviously swap back to my pencil now, and I could start to, again, use the vanishing point, start to add in some more windows. You can really experiment with this. You could draw little plaques on the building. You could have a little think about what you see on architectural designs around your location or your home country, and you can really start to add in some of those details. You might decide that you want to add something on the side of a building or a sign, or cleverly put something in there subtle to personalize it to you. As I said before, I've already started to put the black pen around the outside edge, but what I prefer that you do is actually try to do the colour first and then make that the last task that you do. But you can work it to what suits you. Obviously for our night sky, you're going to want to choose a darker colour. If you wanted to do daytime sky, there is absolutely no reason why you couldn't. You could maybe even pop a little white cloud in there. You could choose, you could decide that, so you might want to have a lighter blue for your sky if it's going to be the daytime. Your buildings, they can be any colours. Actually, on one of the examples, the buildings are different rainbow colours as they go around the outside edge. They sort of tie in with the colour wheel. That might be something that you want to do. Or you might decide that you're just going to use more traditional colours. The only trouble is with the traditional colours is that after you've used brown and grey, you might find that you're running low on a few colours. So it might be a good idea to think about adding in those colour wheel colours. It might make your work a little bit more exciting and easier for you to find colours to add to. So I'm just going to do this as a traditional building. You see I'm trying to add in that dark brown brickwork to give you an idea. So there we go, my very traditional building. I could add in a bit of darker brown at the top here, and then if I wanted to create that illusion of windows, if I just very lightly using the blue, always do this on a diagonal to create that illusion of windows. So we put very light blue down all the way across, and then you can add in just a few dashes just to make it look a little bit like the light is reflecting on there. But you can use any materials that you like for this. I've used colour pencils with a felt pen around the outside edge to make it bold, but you could equally use paints, or you could keep it black and white. That actually might look really good. So don't worry if you haven't got colour materials at home, you could just use black and white. It would still look really good that way. And remember, you can choose night or day. When you're finished, you will need to get rid of all of your guidelines. Make sure that your marker pen is not wet if you do your marker pen first when you start erasing lines, because it will smudge. And obviously try to remove these lines before you add colour, because once you've added colour over the top of the pencil, you won't then be able to get rid of it. So I hope you enjoy this activity. I can't wait to see what you come up with. Don't forget, you can cut out the outside edge of this, so you can cut it out once you've finished. And I'm looking forward to seeing your designs.